Firstly, thank you so much for taking the time in your day to come and watch my presentation. I hope you'll get something useful from this. If not, we've just spent a lovely hour together. As I say, I'm going to apologise. My cat might walk in at some point. She's very noisy. She just likes to say hello. And my husband's voice is ridiculously low. So if you hear it, I do apologise, but I've told them to stay quiet. My name's Natalie and I've been teaching for 6 years now. I teach A-level, so I teach 16 to 19-year-olds, and I teach business and economics. So I completed my master's in 2018, and I'm just about to start my PhD, which is very exciting. This has kind of been a lifelong dream, and finally it's become a reality, which is very cool. And I'm going to be looking at whether the current assessment methods that we used in the schooling system in the UK, whether it really prepares learners for life beyond academic education. I am passionate about ensuring the students have the best experience whilst they're in education. And I know our current setup doesn't mean, well, some students certainly don't get that. So to find other people that are passionate, it's really important to make sure that we have we shape students' education in the best way we possibly can. So this is a little picture of my manager. This is Anya sharing a little ice cream in our office. And it's just a little quote that I like to stick by finding yourself someone who aids and encourages your innovation. If you find like-minded people, then you both want to try new things, or you all want to try new things. But it's really important that you surround yourself with those sorts of people. Otherwise, you get a little bit stagnant. I think you need people to challenge you to try new things. So my hope is that from this, you will understand how to utilize Augment within the classroom delivery. So how a teacher might look to introduce Augment London into their delivery. We also are going to look at how you might encourage learners to complete the course during their personal study time. And finally, we're also going to look at using study skills during the classroom activities. I'd like you to be confident in delivering the new content, and hopefully we look at a range of revision techniques, looking at how we can use homework as an opportunity to develop independent learners. This is a really important thing for us, particularly when they get to the age of 16. We are trying to set them on their course for their careers or for universities, and building that independence is so important that if we can begin to introduce it from a younger age, I think it sets them on a better path of kind of carving out their own learning journey. And then looking at how we might create new classroom activities where we can address new content as well as begin to build revision material. So Augment London is a new program of study, but it's not a classic program of study. It doesn't teach subject-specific content, but instead it teaches study skills. In our college, we have close to 4,000 learners, and our study support team are so tiny, and yet the needs of our students are growing all the time. What Augment hopes to do is teach you how to learn, how to think, and how to persuade. Their vision is to look at developing students so that they think independently, so that they can communicate with precision. And having moved into this remote environment, it's become more and more apparent how impactful communication can be, because you don't necessarily always have the face-to-face interaction or the body language to go alongside something. Actually, that communication is becoming more and more important. And Augment, the point of this is to try and teach people the soft skills, not just the subject-specific knowledge. So I'm going to take you through a look at the intro. So this is the front page that you're greeted with. Obviously, it's got all the classics where you can learn about us and find some FAQs, and then you'll have your sign up or login page. So this means, it's not letting me click for some reason, but you're able to sign up or log in. There we go, the computer's caught up now. So you're able to log in and you're greeted with your dashboard. The first thing to note is that I love how kind of neat this is. I know students in particular get really frustrated when platforms are too busy. So by having this as sparse as it currently is, actually I think is a really important thing. I have one button to click, which is my course, and that introduces me to all the materials. But we'll delve into that as we go along. So that's the kind of first intro to Augment. It's still very new, which is kind of exciting. To be honest, it means that there's lots of scope for delivery. So if we look at the first learning outcome, we're looking at how we can utilize the course within classroom delivery. What we're looking at here is the fact that Augment teach people different revision techniques. And I know that when our learners get to the age of 16, they're actually super stubborn about how they like to learn. You try and introduce new techniques and they just don't have any of it. So again, by introducing a range of revision techniques from a younger age, I think is quite important. Now, there are some that I personally wouldn't get on with as much as others, but I think it's really nice to show the range. So this one technique called the Salesman Method, I'd never heard of before, but the videos for the Salesman Method actually teach learners about the concept as well as how they can then implement it. So it teaches you the theoretical knowledge behind the technique. So just to give a little feel for what one of the videos looks like.
2, I imagine a shoe. For 3, a tree. For 4, a saw, usually cutting something in half. For 5, a hive of bees. For 6, a fix, someone with a spanner. 7 is heaven. And for 8, well, there's a range of choices. You could imagine Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge. But I personally use mate, a pirate, a first mate wearing an eye patch and saying, "Arr," holding a cutlass. For 9, well, again, you could use a line, but I personally use wine, a bottle of red wine. And for 10, a hen, a chicken, squawking contentedly.
So they don't rush into the technique and just expect you to understand this revision concept off the top of your head. It actually goes through how this method was designed. For my age group, for 16 to 19, this concept, or for my subject anyway, this concept, this Salesman Method, having watched the video, it wouldn't work for something that I'm trying to deliver. But I would use the mnemonics. I've never quite understood why the word mnemonics is so difficult to spell, but I would use mnemonics. So one of the key things we have to teach is percentage change in a calculation. So we get them to picture Homer Simpson and his catchphrase of "dough." So they have the difference over the original times 100. And that really helps them recall the technique. What we also have is we teach price elasticity of demand, and we get them to think about the word dope, which apparently means good. I'm not quite down with the lingo, but that gets them to look at the demand over price equals elasticity. So in your classroom delivery, hopefully you're able to look through some of the techniques that they suggested, and you might be able to introduce them in your actual delivery of new content. Maybe you can find ways to use this salesman technique, for example, or use the mnemonics to help them with understanding new information. I think with the Salesman Method in particular, as you can see in the background, it's talking about associating different words with different images. That might be quite a personal thing for each of the student, but this is how you can set the classroom work. So for me, whenever I give an example, I tend to use food just because I love food. If you give that to another student, so if I was to set this technique to my mum, she'd probably come up with colours as a way to remember. So I think using the different methods within a classroom means that you can make it more personalised. for your different learners.